Joj, zezam se, znači, ko bi ga znao gdje je ovdje, to šta, kako, zašto.
Evo love u ponudi, jebote, vidi cenu za loveta, jebova mater.
Kolika je cijena?
A šta, cena 30 možda evra.
Pa što je to? Da
A to
vidimo.
ti kažem, pre 6
STA2,
godina je bio 50, brate.
T54 mod 1 i T26 T3, E5 i
E5 možeš za
T92.
bondove, T92 možeš bondove, pa jedno što ne možeš za bondove da uzmeš.
Šta ne može da uzeti bondove? STA2 i T54 mod.
Da, mislim da ti onda bolje
Koliko
možda
ima, koliko je STA2 ima penetraciju po običnom? 212.
A mod ima ispod 200.
212, 275, 75.
Dobar moj hit, moj dobar. 212.
Da,
Ali nema ništa armora. Znači, te ako te neko dingovati.
da,
Ono te čak i neko može dingovati na moda 1, ali nemaš penetraciju uopšte. Nemaš
da.
penetraciju ni sa običnom, ni sa goldom. I dalje čekam posle 5 godina od kako su ono izbacili da vrate tenkove. Da u sezonu vrate neki, ubace neki tank u referal, gleda da neće.
Neće ništa mijenjati više.
Pa rekao da ubacu u referal kršteni tank, znači pola tankova su obesmislili, stavili su bond shop. I šta ti onda ostaje ti Maur Breher, STA2 i mod 1. Mod 1 ničemu ne služi. STA2, aj Boži pomozi nekako.
Sad gledam, znači T26 T5 ima 230 penetracija običnu. Mod ima 190 penetraciju, STA2 212, a T92 uopće neće ni računati, znači.
Nemoj, to od svih laki tenkova je najgore laki tenkova.
Da.
Čak i onaj kineski bulldog bolji.
Ali šta ćeš? To se igra tako, znači, može i tako da se igra. Da vidimo sada sa zlatom kakvi su.
Jebote, gledaj koliko postoji tih tenkova. Dobro, sad se ovdje preterali s ovim.
259, E5, mod 1 247, STA2 275, to može i 9-ku, 10-ku probiti ako pogodi.
A da, hit.
I T92 230, opet ništa od toga, znači. Damage per minut 2086 imaju E5 i T92, znači T92 neće to nikada moći da uradi. A T54 mod i STA2 imaju, dobro nisu ni mnogo, znači minus 130, minus 83. Nabijač kad staviš to, kad staviš svega ovako nečega, bit će dobro, znači preživljavanje, hit pointi 1500, 1300, 1400, 1000. Hull armor 152, 120, 45, znači STA2 nema ništa. Turret armor 191, 270, znači STA2 ništa nema, znači snajper ispališ i bježi, znači da te sakrije. Engine power, weight.
Ako nema 200 premium tenkova osmica, jer ti 200 premium tenkova osmica, oni dalje štekaju 5 komada za referal. 5 jebenih komada.
Pa ja, isti retardizma. Isti retardizam kao inače, znači E5 je 15 horsepower per ton, T54 21, 19, 35.
Da vrate CDA 105, na primjer.
Ne, ništa to, kako to? Čuj njega da se vrati, nešto da se mijenja. Što mijenjali kad niko ništa ne traži to da se mijenja?
Pa niko nije ni tražio Referal 2.0, pa su
view range. Pa da. Ali su mi promijenili, tad je neko možda i tražio da se malo promijeni. 390, 380,
još onda su govorili matchmaking i RNG su još onda vikali.
Ja. Ne, sad razmišljam da uzmem E5 ili STA2.
T26, E5 opet kažem imaš za bondove.
A nemam ja za bondove kad nemam bondova, bog te dobio sam za referala, izaberi jedan tank.
Onda ako nećeš za bondove uzeti kasnije.
STA2. Onda za bondove može se kasnije. Ne, slušaj sad, gledaj sad ovo. Ja biram koji ću tank sada uzeti za zarađivanje para, znači koji ima najbolju običnu granatu.
Pa onda Patriot, onda ne
A
znam.
ne, jesi... Ja, Patriot, to je E5, jel tako?
Da,
Znači,
T26, T5, da.
njega uzeti.
Dvostruki A5 on dobar je, čak mogu da te
ja.
dingaju.
Ma ja bolan, kad uzmem onaj...
STA2 nije precizan, STA2 ima loš gen handling. Mislim da Patriot ima i bolji gen handling.
Ja.
Onda tako gledajući.
Ma Patriot uzeti pa onda ova 2 tenka za 3 mjeseca kad uradim druga dva referala.
Ćemo te gledati koliko tenkova ima u ponudi. Mogu TS5 eto da ubace.
Mogli su nešto ubaciti. Ništa, znači
Kineskog VZ-a. Pa
E5 ćemo
nešto da
uzeti sada.
ubace. I onako pola, evo KV4 KTTS ničemu ne služi. Tank, eto, mogli su eto njega da. Čisto da ubaci, iako tank ničemu ne služi. Ajde da ubaci nešto.
Da.
Razumeš? Tank nije ničemu, znači ima 289 mm gold TD, recimo, TD je. A ima, ajdeš napred, nije za snipe, imaš ga na tank GG.
Da.
Dugačak tank kod tog, onako, ko KV4, klasičan KV4 sa stacioniranom kupolom, levo desno, ono, jedva. Lovac. Mogli su eto da zadrže jak Tigra 8-8.
A prvo je APCR i drugo je APCR, znači samo jači APCR.
Dvostruki APCR. Mogli su Emila da stave 951 i onako ga niko ne koristi. Mislim, samo čisto da promene. Znači, samo da promene, da ne gledamo 5 godina za njih isto gledamo 5 godina, iste tenkove 5 vrtiš. Da si napravio jedan godišnji referal, skupio bih dosad sve. Znači. Dobro, MP-Y su stavili u Bond Shop, dobro. Jedan šta... Može staviti Carnarvon AX, lupa.
Ništa, idem ja sada da riješim Jade-a.
Možda stavim IMX sa CDC, ima dobru penetraciju i brz je.
Ma debolan, koje god da su stavili govno da se malo promijeni umjesto ovih tenkova što već imaju, bilo bi u redu. Jer ono...
Ne da se promijeni, nego samo da dodaju na spisak.
Pa ja. Ali niko nije tražio, nisam ni ja tražio da mijenjaju. Sad kad budem rešio još 2 referala, onda ću tražiti da se doda nešto.
Ajme šta mogu da stavlja da je govno od tenka, da je teško od govno. A da nije skoro ubačen.
Su 130 MP.
Mogu onog XM-a 66 F. Ne 57, 66, to nije lošiji. Mogli su, ne znam. Kukaju za T34, kukaju da ne valja, eto dajte njega ako ne valja. Ajte dajte T34, ne.
Ko kaže da ne valja?
Ma im svi piše ne valja kao T34.
Neki dan me T34 otkino, znači u kupolu ne moš mu ništa, sedmicom na osmicu,
dobro, ali u osmicama te već buše, znači u osmicama već mogu hitom da te nabuše preko 300 mm, da te probuše, man te ne de oćeš.
Da.
Pa mene su izbušili na osmici običnoj T34. Mi T34 bre, izađeš na kupolu da igraš bam, škorpion je u top negde.
Da.
PM ima 320 hit, eto hit ne gubi i pročepite.
Da.
U top, pored topa, nemam pojma, ima neki slab. U kupolu ima i neki. Tražiš BZ-a, tražiš nešto normalno, mogu 50 TP-a prototipa, mada njoj nema penetracije. 218 obična, 245 gol, da, 5-7. To mogli se da ubaci 112-ica, eto, 112-ica, eto. Bolje, kažu, od onog Alpine. Njega da ubace za... Bez veze.
Ajde, izađi dečak.
Izađi na penetraciju.
Jabola, znači, izađi na penetraciju, ađu da ubijem. Evo, Novčića stoji tu. Ispred mene stoji Novčić.
Smodu.
Što duvaš? Šta šuštiš?
Se zove... Čekaj bre, da ispušim. Jel sad normalno?
Jest.
Zvuk se zove out of range. Jebe mi hudofe, sad znam zašto se zove out of range.
Zašto je out of range?
Testi. Ali čujemo?
Ne.
Oj, nećemo.
Kako ovo zvuči.
To. Odlično.
Kaže deep vojnoj.
Čovječe, nemoj mi komandira ubijati, bog te mazo. Vidovu.
Ovo se zove Boni. Kako to znači? Oko neki eho. Eho.
Nema ja, ovo ljudi su debili, bog te mazo, čovjek stoji na snajpu sa heavyjem, znači neće da dođe nešto da uradi. To je to. Znači, izađem i da provjerim. Ako moram ostati do kraja, ne treba mi da budem se debilima, znači. Bog te jebo, Steppes, dobiješ na sredinu i neće, ljudi otišli okolo, stoje u bazi, snajpaju. Neće niko da se pomeri. Debilana obična.
Ovo je sad zapisao narator.
Da.
Ovo je za YouTube stvoren.
I evo čovjek me je riješio, znači dobio radio svoju medalju, znači da ubije ovoga što ima novčić. Sa light tankom. Ovi me ojadili. A?
Da ti danas nisam ništa kupio toga.
Pa da, i to, u pravu si bio. Ja čekao da neko od njih pokupi.
Neko da me i na to reši, nema.
Ne, evo ja sam sada pustio, izašao iz partije i ako ne dobijem 3 poena, gotovo, šta? Šta je ovo? Treba nam light neko da uzme ga. Ja nemam otključanoga da je uzmem. Izaberem. Rudnik. Zašto se prva čeka, bog te, 30 sekundi? A ja da svi uđu, zašto nije se svi... Jebote.
Idem na Kalemegdan kad bude svečano pucanje povodom dana državnosti.
Oho.
Nisam bio odavno.
Svaka čast. Ajde.
Ja pripremim koje treba u 4 da počnem, pa da ja krenem sad pripremati.
Ajde.
Čućemo se onda večeras.
Ajde, vozdra. Danas neće.
is Tab Islands. As you know, I write the scripts before creating videos. During script writing, I use multiple browser tabs for my research. With Opera's Tab Islands feature, I can easily group and organize these tabs, making my work faster and allowing me to find the tab I need quickly. Another useful feature of Opera is the built-in ad blocker. With the built-in ad blocker, you can experience an ad-free and smooth web surfing experience without the need for any additional extensions. Additionally, Opera offers a free VPN. With Opera's free VPN, you can hide your IP address, preventing third parties from tracking you and stealing your data. Furthermore, Opera has its built-in AI Aria. With Aria, you can summarize texts, brainstorm new ideas, and instantly access up-to-date information. Also, if you're switching from another browser, you can easily transfer all your data to Opera. And the best part about Opera is that all of these features are free. You can access Opera and all these features for free from the link I've left in the description and comments. So where were we? We were talking about the letters found at the end of processors. If there is no letter at the end of the product, it means that it is a locked CPU, which means you can't overclock it. These CPUs are designed to work within advertised power limits. For most users, they are an excellent option because they perform very well with minimal extra spending. In laptops, locked CPUs are typically identified by the letter H. They are usually offered with laptops that come with high resolution and high refresh rate models, but this can vary by region. Therefore, you have to look for display information. The letter F means that the CPU is not able to overclock, and it is not capable of video output because it lacks the integrated graphics card to do so. If you are buying this CPU, you have to buy a GPU as well. KF means that the CPU is capable of overclocking, but doesn't have an integrated GPU like the F line. You need a dedicated GPU for this. They could be a good option if you're interested in relying solely on your dedicated GPU. T and U mean that the CPU is optimized for lighter tasks. They do have integrated GPUs, but are not able to reach higher clock speeds. These products are optimized for longer battery life. Chromebooks that are aimed towards entry-level users use these CPUs. CPU models come with different thread and core counts, power limits, clock speeds, and cache. For Intel, the first thing you'll see is the branding and model. The Intel Core lineup consists of 4 distinct categories. i3 line. These CPUs are entry-level products that perform well on lower-powered setups. They are mostly used in office or entry-level products. i5 line. The i5 is a more performance-focused line. They offer at least 6 cores and are a good choice for a gaming rig. Additionally, their cache capacity is usually higher than that of the i3. i7 line. The i7 line is the preferred choice for heavier tasks, such as streaming alongside gaming. If you are looking for a PC for video editing, the i7 line is the best choice because most editing software requires your PC to have at least 8 cores. They typically have more cache than the i5. In laptops, they can be a sweet spot because they are usually priced better than i9 line laptops while offering similar performance. Intel also has a new line of CPUs focused on efficiency alongside performance, called Intel Core Ultra. They can easily be spotted with their branding that indicates their new generation. These CPUs are offered in the mobile segment where both performance and efficiency are important. They belong to a similar branch as the i7 and i5 lines. The i9 line represents the most powerful offerings from the Intel Core lineup. They offer at least 12 cores. These CPUs are the best from the Intel lineup. Whether you're looking for desktop or laptop options, these CPUs can handle very heavy workloads. In the AMD lineup, the naming scheme is similar. First, you'll see the brand and model name like AMD Ryzen 3, 5, 7, and 9. As you can see, this is similar to the Intel Core lineup. As the model number goes up, you'll have more cores, threads, and cache. Just like the Intel products, these are aimed towards different types of users. Also, it's worth mentioning the following. Unlike Intel processors, which can only be overclocked in specific models, all AMD processor models are overclockable. However, your motherboard needs to support this feature. You can overclock your Ryzen processors on motherboards such as B450 or X570. What are core and thread? Do they matter in gaming? If you've ever looked at the specifications of a certain CPU, you'll notice terms like 8 cores, 16 threads, or 12 cores, 24 threads. A core is a subunit of a CPU. Today's CPUs contain more than one core for better performance and power efficiency. A thread count indicates the tasks that a core can handle. In the simplest terms, they act like virtual cores. Almost all programs benefit from this, but the ones that benefit the most are creative programs like Adobe Premiere, Photoshop, DaVinci Resolve, and 3D modeling programs. What is CPU cache? Why is it important? If your CPU is powerful enough, the rate of data that it processes may exceed the bandwidth of your RAM. This basically means that your RAM cannot transfer the data fast enough to the CPU at high speeds. This can cause performance drops and system latency. CPUs have very fast memory modules called cache located near to them. These modules allow for faster data transfers than what your RAM is capable of by itself. Cache is particularly important in use cases where your CPU processes a large amount of data, such as 3D modeling, high-resolution video editing, streaming, and AAA gaming. Cache plays a crucial role in improving the efficiency and speed of these tasks by reducing the need to access data from slower RAM, thereby enhancing overall system performance. Now let's move away from the processor and take a look at what we need to know about graphics cards. In GPUs, you need to look for these three features: CUDA core count, VRAM capacity, and wattage limits. Let's start with CUDA cores. What is CUDA core? CUDA cores are the processing units that NVIDIA GPUs use. They were developed during the GTX 800 series. They are similar to CPU cores in their base design. However, they are simpler. They have wider bandwidth and work in parallel. This allows them to process an enormous amount of data in real time. This is very beneficial in graphically demanding tasks such as gaming and 3D modeling. In recent years, CUDA core's advantage in processing large amounts of data has made NVIDIA GPUs a very good candidate for more unusual tasks, such as running large language models or virtual neural networks for AI systems. AMD has a similar technology called stream processors. They are similar to CUDA cores, but have slightly less processing power. However, their optimization options are wider. In terms of performance, both processors are able to provide a good experience. But this is highly dependent on VRAM, driver support, and optimizations. What is RT Core? An RT Core, short for Ray Tracing Core, is a specialized processing unit found in NVIDIA's RTX series GPUs. RT cores are specifically designed to accelerate ray tracing, a rendering technique used to generate realistic lighting, shadows, and reflections in 3D graphics. Ray tracing involves simulating the behavior of light as it interacts with objects in a scene, tracing the paths of individual rays of light to determine how they interact with surfaces and objects. This process is computationally intensive and traditionally requires significant processing power. With the introduction of RT cores in NVIDIA's RTX series GPUs, real-time ray tracing has become more feasible in gaming and other graphics-intensive applications, allowing for more immersive and visually stunning experiences with realistic lighting and reflections. AMD GPUs are also capable of ray tracing via RT cores. However, NVIDIA has an advantage as they use software optimization to get the best results. What is Tensor Core? Tensor cores are basically a more optimized version of CUDA cores. CUDA cores focus on providing high performance on parallel tasks like rendering or ray tracing. Tensor cores are optimized for AI-based use cases like machine learning, virtual neural networks, and models.
Bam,
They are
ti
produced
sunac.
specifically for AI programming. But GPUs like RTX 3000, 4000 series also have Tensor cores for NVIDIA's DLSS technology. So in a way, you are also using these cores. This technology uses AI to increase the resolution and allows you to play at lower settings with high FPS rates. AMD has a similar feature called
Ja su popravio
FSR. It
đaokcu
doesn't
mogu,
rely on
znači.
Tensor cores
Ja
and
sam
is
napravio
open
800
source.
damage-a,
Means
mene
you can
boli
use it
kurac,
on
vi
NVIDIA
čekajte,
cards, as are
čekajte.
older GPUs well, but doesn't always give
Ja
the
ću
same
doći dok oni
performance
ne
because
budu
of the
bolji da ja
possible
mogu ubiti
optimization
nekoga od njih.
issues.
Ko
All right,
nosi
let's
ono.
finish the video
Boli me
slowly.
kurac
As I
ovo.
mentioned, if you really like this video, I'll release the second part soon. Of course, your reaction will determine that. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If not, feel free to dislike. Stay mysterious until the next video. Take care and bye. If you want to build a gaming PC, you will know everything that you need to know after watching this video. These are the components that make up a PC: processor, motherboard, graphics card, SSD, RAM, PC case, power supply, and CPU cooler. I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about these components in order of importance. Firstly, let me tell you how to pick the graphics card. There are 3 things that you need to pay attention to: the GPU, the brand and model, and the graphics card processor compatibility. I will talk about the third one in the processor section. Let's look at the first 2 for now. GPU is the graphics chip inside the graphics card. It dictates how well the graphics card performs, which is why it's very important. In a gaming PC, the component that you should set aside the most amount of budget for is the GPU, or rather, the graphics card. The 2 things you need to focus on here are how up-to-date the GPU is and how performant it is in games. Up-to-date GPUs have newer technologies, so they can offer better performance and consume less power while doing so. But the newest GPU isn't always the most performant. For example, even though the RTX 3070 is an older GPU, it's more powerful than the 4060. Yet, another example, the GTX 1080 Ti performs similarly to the RTX 3060, but consumes way more power compared to it. The only way to determine which GPU is more powerful is by checking gaming tests and GPU comparisons. Besides this, you can also ask for help on forums. Now let's move on to the second thing you need to pay attention to when choosing a graphics card: brand and model. Brands take the GPU I've just mentioned and sell it after making additions in areas such as cooling. The cooling performance of a graphics card is measured by the noise levels and the temperatures. The quieter and cooler, the better it is. I've told you everything that you need to know about graphics card brands and models in 2 tier list videos in this channel. Now, I want to recommend you graphics cards, but to do so, I need to know your budget, which is why I'll mostly recommend cards that offer high performance for their price. The Intel Arc B580. It's one of the best cards that has come out in recent years that also offers great performance despite being affordable. It has a performance between the RTX 4060 and the RTX 4060 Ti. The temperatures of the card are pretty good across all models. My second recommendation is the AMD RX 7700 XT. It is way more powerful than the RTX 4060 Ti, and it has a performance similar to the 4070. The prices of AMD cards vary a lot depending on the country you live in. In terms of models, all of them have good cooling performance. You can go with any one of them. RX 9070 XT. This card has been a hot topic lately. I really like this card, but its prices in Europe are too high. It has a performance similar to the RTX 5070 Ti. As it's a new graphics card, it's too early to recommend models. Now it's time for the processor. There are 3 things you need to pay attention to when picking a processor. The first one is the processor graphics card bottleneck that I postponed earlier. The second is processor performance. And lastly, socket compatibility. First of all, let me tell you about the processor and graphics card bottleneck. If the processor and graphics card performance isn't well balanced, you won't be able to get enough performance from games. Either the graphics card or the processor will perform worse than it should. We call this drop in performance a bottleneck. The bottleneck percentage is often directly proportional to the amount of FPS we lose. For example, if the GPU usage is at 85% and the CPU usage is at 99% while gaming, you can get 85 FPS in a game.
What the fuck?
Getting 100 FPS from equal to a loss of 15%.
Ma da, tako i treba.
The graphics card sufficiently. To find the right processor, you can check out the Passmark Top Gaming Score list. The processors in this list are sorted by their performance in games, meaning the higher ranked processor's gaming performance is better than the processor that's ranked lower on the list. You need to pick a processor within your budget that's as high up on this list as possible. After picking your processor, check gaming test videos on YouTube that feature the graphics card and the processor you chose. For example, there are a lot of videos about the RTX 4060 and Ryzen 5 5600 Duo. Check the usage percentages in the test. You won't have any issues if the bottleneck percentage doesn't exceed 10%, or at most 15%. Now let's talk about processor performance. Before we get into processor performance, I want to take a quick moment to talk about something just as important: your privacy while browsing online. That's why I recommend today's video sponsor, PIA VPN. If you don't know what a VPN is, it's a service that masks your IP address and location while encrypting your data as you browse online. Without PIA VPN, any website you visit can see your IP address and approximate location. This information can be used to track your activity online across different websites by third parties, such as hackers, advertisers, or even your government. Not using PIA VPN is like walking through a crowded street with your personal information hanging around your neck for everyone to see. Thanks to their ability to hide your location and even to change your location to 91 other countries in all 50 states, PIA VPN also lets you access geo-blocked content and streaming libraries from other countries, helping you watch shows that aren't available in your region. PIA is one of the most trustworthy and transparent VPNs in the world, with a proven no-logs policy that's been independently verified, so it doesn't record or store any data about your online activity. And the best part? You can use PIA VPN on all your devices with just one subscription. You can try out private internet access today with a special 83% discount by following the link in the description, or go to piavpn.com/themysterioustech. I personally recommend the 2 years plus 4 months free plan. I think it's a great deal. The performances of processors can vary, so as not to overwhelm you with the technical details, I'm going to put it in simple terms. The Intel i5-12400F and the
Letu, malo ću lijepo, to završi me, nemoj me više jebavati kad dobijem.
Both processors outperform each other. So, when choosing a processor, you should check its performance in the games you plan to play. Lately, Intel processors haven't been in a very good position, but that's a topic for another video. Now let's move on to socket compatibility. The part of the processor that connects to the motherboard is called the CPU socket, and the motherboard socket and processor must be compatible. For example, you can't install a processor compatible with an AM4 socket into an AM5 motherboard. The socket is more related to the motherboard, but I'm talking about it here as it concerns the processor as well. Also, there is the subject of socket longevity. Socket longevity refers to how long a socket stays compatible with new processors. If a socket is long-lasting, it will support the processors the manufacturer is going to release in the future, meaning that it allows you to upgrade your processor to a newer one without also upgrading your motherboard. If you want a socket with high longevity, you should turn towards processors and motherboards with the AM5 socket. The socket that the processor is compatible with should be listed on the page where you're buying it. If you want me to give you a processor recommendation, I mostly recommend you go with AMD processors. They released really successful processors, especially with the Ryzen series. Their socket longevity and the performance is better compared to their competitor, Intel. If your budget is tight, I can recommend the Ryzen 5 7500F or the Ryzen 5 7600. They are similar processors, just try not to go with the 7600X. The 7600X tends to overheat and doesn't perform well with the stock CPU cooler. While I don't recommend it all that much, you can go with the Intel Core i5-13400F and the i5-14400F, which offer similar performance to the 7500F. Their prices can sometimes be cheaper than AMD processors. If you can increase your budget by a bit more, the Ryzen 7 9700X is a great processor for its price. Now let's talk about the SSD. There are a lot of things you need to pay attention to in this component. But to not confuse you, I won't tell you about all of these one by one. Instead, I recommend that you get help from the forums. You can get SSD recommendations suited for your build by creating a thread on a forum.
Idemo!
The SSD you buy should be at least 1
What
terabyte.
the fuck?
Considering the size of modern games, SSDs below 1 terabyte might not be enough. Over time, you might have to delete stuff to free up space. Besides this, some SSD manufacturers are way better than others. For example, Samsung is one of the best SSD manufacturers, and they have many successful SSDs. But some of them are more advantageous in terms of price, so you should definitely browse forums for the SSD that you want to buy. Besides this, there are PCI Express versions on SSDs. It's a good idea to pick an SSD that has the same version of PCI Express as the motherboard, because this version dictates the speed limits
Dobro,
of the SSD.
dobro, mrdaj se, mrdaj se. Ma jablan. No, daj me završi, znači ja sam završio tu.
For example, you can install a 4.0 SSD on a 3.0 motherboard, but you won't achieve its maximum speed since the motherboard's data bus is limited to PCI Express 3.0 speeds. This applies to the other way around as well. You can install a PCI Express 3.0 SSD on a 4.0 motherboard, but you will only be able to get PCI Express 3.0 speeds. You won't gain any additional speed benefits. There is also a PCI Express 5.0 version, but I think it's too expensive for the average consumer. I know I went into too much detail again, but you can get help from forums. Now let me give you some SSD recommendations. These two SSDs are essentially the same, with only the brands differing. Their speeds and quality are more than sufficient. If you can increase your budget by a bit more, this SSD can be a good choice as well. It's a very high quality SSD. Let's move on to the most crucial component, the one that can fry your entire PC instead of just affecting its performance. The power supply.
Neće Amorek. Što nije Amorek išao?
As I mentioned before, for the SSD, I recommend seeking advice from forums on the power supply as well. This way, you'll find out which PSUs are the highest quality and best suited for your build. Don't worry, I won't tell you to get help from forums and then go on to explain a bunch of things like I did for the SSDs. In short, just focus on these. You should choose a PSU with a higher wattage than what your build requires. To find out how many watts your PC requires, you can use PSU calculator websites. By the way, the quality of the PSU is very important. Low quality PSUs can damage your PC. I now want to make some PSU recommendations. I can recommend this as an affordable 650 watt PSU. It's a very high quality PSU. And if you have a high budget and you want a higher capacity power supply, you can pick this one instead. Now let's move on to the motherboard. There are 5 things you need to consider when choosing a motherboard. The compatibility with your processor, the chipset, the number and versions of ports, and finally...
Može, ja mislim da je to bio Amorek. Malo prerano, malo kasno, prekasno.
We look at the socket to determine if a processor and motherboard are compatible with each other. You can only install an AM4 processor on an AM4 motherboard. The chipset defines the segment of the motherboard. Motherboards with different chipsets have different features. Chipsets generally have better features with each new generation, but sometimes an older chipset can be better than a newer one. Therefore, we can't say something clear like the newer one is always better. This is a long video subject in itself, so to avoid making the video longer, I can show the rankings between chipsets this way. The number of ports on the motherboard and their versions are important too. Like the PCI Express version in the SSD, the port versions can limit the connection speed, so it is important to pay attention to it. You might not always find this information on the website you're buying from, but you can check the motherboard manufacturer's website instead. Lastly, you should pay attention to the VRM on the motherboard. The VRM is a circuit that regulates the voltage supplied to the processor. As the phase count and amp rating increase, it will be able to support more powerful processors. If you want to use a high-end processor that consumes a lot of power, you need to pay attention to the VRM. Hardware unboxed comparison videos are great for understanding the VRM and the general quality of a motherboard. Besides that, you can also get help from forums. I'm going to recommend some motherboards, but it's not right to make recommendations because you need to pick one based on your needs. These recommendations might not be the right option for you. With its $120 price tag on Newegg, this can be a pretty good choice if you're looking for an affordable motherboard. Additionally, I recommend this if you're looking for a more future-proof motherboard. Let me also recommend a motherboard for Intel processors. As the socket longevity is shorter on the Intel side, I don't recommend investing too much. This motherboard can be a good choice due to its features and quality. Let's jump into the RAM. When it comes to RAM, there are 3 things you need to pay attention to: the DDR version, the capacity, and the megahertz and CL values. Like the socket for the processor, you can determine the compatibility of RAM and a motherboard by checking the DDR version. You can install a DDR4 RAM on a DDR4 motherboard. Regardless of your use case, whether it's gaming or web browsing, the RAM capacity is something you should pay attention to. Nowadays, you should at least go with 16 GB of RAM, though it would be much better if you went with 32 GB instead. That way, you'll be ready for upcoming games too. To determine a RAM's speed, you need to look at the megahertz and CL values. The megahertz value should be high, and the CL value should be low. Since DDR5 RAMs still have stability issues, 6000 MHz CL30 RAM is the most suitable option. Quick tip, if you're thinking of buying DDR4 RAM, you should use dual channel. But what is dual channel RAM and what does it do? Dual channel RAM improves performance by using 2 8GB RAM sticks instead of one 16GB RAM stick. At the end of the day, you still have 16GB of RAM, but with more performance than a single RAM stick. This is not necessary for DDR5 RAM, as DDR5 RAM already operates like dual channel RAM. They don't require dual channel. Now let me give you a few RAM recommendations. If you're looking for an affordable DDR5 RAM, I recommend the Patriot Viper Venom series. There is also a RGB variant for a little bit more expensive. If you want a DDR5 32GB RAM,
San
I once again
tu.
recommend the Patriot Viper Venom series. They are really affordable. I'm recommending this as there are compatibility issues above speeds of 6,000 megahertz. If you're looking for a cheap and high-quality DDR4 RAM, you can buy this. They are very high-quality RAMs. This DDR4 32GB RAM is really affordable too. Now, next up is the case. There are three things you need to pay attention to when picking a case. Firstly, the dimensions. Secondly, the airflow. And lastly, the pre-installed fan count. All components of the PC are placed inside the case. Therefore, it is very important for the parts to be able to fit inside it. Do not pick a case without checking the length of your graphics card, the size of your motherboard, and the size of your CPU cooler. The only function of a case that could be considered important is the airflow. The air needs to comfortably enter the case, and later the hot air needs to be exhausted. If the airflow isn't good, components will overheat and performance will worsen. For good airflow, it's important that the front panel of the case has a mesh design. Additionally, some cases come with pre-installed fans. These fans have a major effect on the airflow. If you pick a case with at least pre-installed fans, you won't have to make additional spending towards extra fans. I won't make any suggestions for cases because case selection is mostly about personal preference. Next up is the CPU cooler. I sorted the components by their order of importance, but I wasn't really sure where to place the CPU cooler. There are three things you need to pay attention to in CPU coolers: the processor and cooler compatibility, the type of cooler, and the dimensions. The socket that I mentioned in the motherboard and processor sections also comes into play when picking a CPU cooler. You may face compatibility issues if the necessary brackets are not included with the CPU cooler. Make sure to check out which brackets are included with the CPU cooler you buy. Quick tip: AM4 socket coolers can also be installed on AM5 processors. If you already have an AM4 compatible CPU cooler, you can use it for AM5 processors as well. Additionally, the CPU cooler you choose also depends on the processor you plan to use. While the stock cooler is sufficient for the 12100F, you'll need a more powerful cooler for the 12700KF. The required cooling capacity is usually determined by the TDP rating. For a processor with a TDP of 105 watts, a cooler rated for the same TDP should be sufficient. You have to watch review videos on YouTube if you want a good CPU cooler. I'm not too sure about recommending forums on this one. A lot of forum users think liquid cooling is much better than air cooling. Now, let's take a look at the different types of CPU coolers. There are two main types of cooling: air cooling and liquid cooling. While liquid cooling should be used for high-end processors, air cooling can be used for mid-range processors. Some high-end air coolers can also be used for powerful processors. Reminder: air coolers provide similar performance to 240mm liquid coolers. If you're on a budget, opting for air cooling makes more sense. I think that liquid cooling is mainly useful for processors that tend to overheat. Other than that, it doesn't make much sense. I also need to tell you about CPU cooler dimensions. Not all coolers are in the same dimensions. The cooler needs to be able to fit the case. When choosing air coolers, you should pay attention to the height of the cooler. For liquid coolers, you should consider the radiator size and sometimes the radiator thickness. You can find this information on the cooler manufacturer's website. Let's move on to the CPU coolers I recommend.
Ajde, završite, Bog vas mazo, znači...
While other coolers at the same price have 4 heat pipes,
Šta imam
this one comes
radit,
with 6
znači,
heat
čekaj.
pipes.
Gotova izgubljena partija, dobio sam poene prvu, 800 damage napravio, bez veze trošim vrijeme. Idemo sljedeća.
Which is one of the best air coolers. It is a really powerful cooler for its price. If you are determined to buy an affordable liquid cooler, the Enermax LickMax Flow series is pretty good for its price. And if you want a high-end liquid cooler, you can pick this one. Now you know everything there is to know about PC
Znači,
parts.
ako ubijem ovoga,
But
bit će
besides
odlično.
these,
Ako ne...
there is one more really important thing that you need to know about. Never, but never buy all parts from a single store. You can find the same part for much cheaper on different stores. PC Part Picker can be useful, but feel free to browse other websites you know and trust. Also, if you don't want to make any mistakes or overspend on any components, share all the parts you picked on a forum before buying them. Get opinions from other users, they might recommend a better part and prevent you from overspending. Alright, let's finish the video slowly. Just one last thing. If you want to keep your browsing safe while looking up all these parts, PIA VPN has you covered. Links in the description. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If not, feel free to dislike. Stay mysterious until the next video. Take care, and bye.
Ohoho. Može.
If you want to build a gaming PC, I'm going to suggest 3 different builds for 3 different price points: budget, mid-tier, and high-end. These 3 PCs will consist of the best parts in their respective budgets. Without further ado, let's get started. Now, there are 3 points you need to pay attention to, which I'll show on the screen. Feel free to pause and read them. Let's move on to the part suggestions. I've carefully selected parts that offer the best performance without compromising on quality. And in some parts I left it up for you to decide. Budget build. The budget I've set for the budget build is between $800 and $900. This may sound high to some, but it's the cheapest I'd recommend you go for a good gaming experience. PCs below this price point don't really offer good gaming performance. CPU, Intel Core i5-14400F. I've said that you needed to stay away from 14th gen Intel processors in my previous video, so it might seem a bit ironic that I've used the 14400F here. But interestingly enough, the 14400F is both cheaper and easier to find on the market than the 13400F. If you find the 13400F for cheaper, you can pick that as well. If you can remember, microcode issues for Intel processors were a legitimate concern for a while. I haven't encountered such an issue for the 14400F, but don't forget to update your BIOS just in case. So what are its weak spots? Firstly, the LGA 1700 is a dead socket. This means future processors won't be compatible with this motherboard. Secondly, this processor can run a bit too hot. The stock fan is definitely insufficient, so I suggested a better cooler for the build. CPU cooler. Thermalright Burst Assassin 120 SE ARGB. This cooler can easily keep the i5-14400F cool. With 6 copper heat pipes and high-quality fans, I couldn't find anything better than this within this price range. There's also another version without lighting that has almost the same fan features at $18. If you can't find the ARGB
Burn,
version,
bitch, burn!
instead. But if you can't find that either, there's also a version with 5 heat pipes named Assassin King. However, since the prices are so close, there's no need to go for that model if you can get the Burst Assassin. Motherboard. Gigabyte B760M DS3H DDR4. It's a grave mistake to invest too much on the motherboard on a budget build. So motherboards on entry-tier PCs may end up being rather basic, but this motherboard is very good despite its affordable price. Its 9-phase VRM and passive cooler, though basic, are more than enough to keep a processor like the i5-14400F under control. Compared to its counterparts, this is a minor but also significant advantage. For those who don't know, VRM is the component that supplies the processor with the electricity it needs. Also, thanks to its 4 RAM slots, it enables you to upgrade the RAM in the future. The biggest pro of this motherboard is its SSD ports. It has 2 M.2 slots running at PCIe 4.0 speeds, and one even has a heatsink on top of it. Next up is the heart of the gaming PC, the GPU. Graphics card. ASRock Steel Legend Arc B580. Picking a graphics card on a tight budget is harder than it looks. My primary goal here is to build a PC you'll be able to use for a long time, so I don't recommend graphics cards with 8GB VRAM, as it's becoming increasingly insufficient due to developers not optimizing their games. My first suggestion, and the one I took for reference, is the Intel Arc B580. It offers a long lifetime with 12GB VRAM. This is its biggest advantage. Its second advantage is that its performance is somewhere between the RTX 4060 and the RTX 4060 Ti, which are much more expensive. Another advantage is that it's more stable and more manageable in terms of power consumption and temperatures. This is a detail some may miss, but there is a very significant shortcoming that negates all of the positives of this card. Its software. Drivers of Intel GPUs have still not fully matured. They can perform very well one moment and very poorly the next, which significantly affects the card's performance. For this exact reason, I'll suggest an alternative you can go for if you increase your budget. If you're able to add $100 more to your budget, the $360 Sapphire Pulse RX 7600 XT16GB would be a much better choice. Yes, $100 is a lot, but it's definitely worth it. Firstly, it has way less software issues compared to Intel GPUs. Plus, it also has features like FSR4 and frame generation. Its performance is very close to the RTX 5060 Ti, and the fact that it has 16GB VRAM is absurdly good. Compared to the B580, its power consumption and temperature values are better too. I'm aware that not everyone is able to add $100 to their budget, so I'm leaving the decision up to you here and moving on to the next part. SSD,
Odlično.
Western Digital 1TB Black SN.
Odlično.
Even though I'm trying to
Debilizam na najvišem nivou.
can't go below a terabyte of storage. Game sizes have become incredibly large, and 512 gigabytes is definitely insufficient now. In tests, it can reach read speeds as high as 7,200 megabytes per second, and write speeds as high as 6,900 megabytes per second. Pretty close to the advertised speeds. The controller and NAND memory module that provide these speeds are high quality as well. So you're getting a storage that's both long-lasting and high performance for a low price. RAM. Lexar Aries RGB 16GB 3600 MHz CL18. It's pretty easy to pick a DDR4 RAM, so I picked the most sensible option for the price. The fact that it's 3600 MHz CL18 is a bit better compared to other models in this price range. There's not much else to say besides that. Case, SAMA 3509. Frankly speaking, I'm kind of old-fashioned in terms of picking a PC case. What's important to me is its ability to fulfill its purpose and affordability. So I went with the SAMA 3509. The case comes with 4 120mm fans and a fan controller. You can also change the lighting as you wish. Though I don't expect too much from the quality of the fans, as cheap cases use cheap fans. It offers 163mm of CPU air cooler clearance, supports GPUs up to 345mm long, has radiator support for 360mm in the front and 280mm on top, and fits ATX-sized motherboards. Plus, it even allows you to install graphics cards vertically, even if it's a bit cramped. Considering the price and the features it provides, not bad at all. PSU, MSI Mag A750BN. I'll be honest, this PSU is overkill for this build. I picked it because of its higher quality compared to its competitors. I advise you to not compromise on a part this crucial just to save $10. Even if it's too much for this PC right now, its 750-watt capacity will greatly benefit you if you decide to upgrade a part in the future. Another advantage of it is that it comes with the new 300-watt 12-volt high-power connector. This might especially come in handy for some GPUs where this connector is used. It's a very reliable model in terms of quality too. With that, our low-budget PC is complete for
Ajde, ošteti ga, bole.
Mid-tier build. We're now moving on to the mid-tier build. This time, our budget is between $1,400 and $1,500. CPU. AMD Ryzen 5 9600X. Here, I'll use the Ryzen 5 9600X many of you asked about in the comments of my processor recommendations video. The 9600X is a bit more powerful and cooler than the 7600X. If the price gap widens, you can also opt for the 7600 or the 7600.
Završili smo to.
Cooler anyways, you don't have to worry about temperatures. Even those 6 cores and 12 threads
Dva
may
puta
seem
su
low,
na mene
what's more
farmali tu
significant is the
misiju.
architecture of the CPU. As the architecture of the 9600X is recent, it'll greatly satisfy you in terms of performance. CPU cooler.
Sad nisam ja vidio to ono, je li 800 damage ili su promijenili na 8? Vina battle.
It performs better than most 240mm.
A sad nije više to, nego win battle.
Our processor quite well. As I've already stated many times before, the idea that water coolers are better than
Ajoj, pa ne čitam, bog, te nije 800 damage nego pobjedi.
Firstly, it comes with 7 heat pipes and a large block.
Znači, samo pucaj, ubijaj.
This way, the heat from the processor is dissipated better. Alongside this, it also comes with 2 fans. Its specs are great on paper, and it can provide cooling quietly. You can use this cooler with peace of mind, even if you upgrade your processor later down the line. Motherboard. ASRock B650PG Lightning. Here, we can invest a bit more on the motherboard. As the AM5 socket is still being used and will continue to be used for a long time, we want the
Samo treba sad da se pobjedi.
Firstly, it has an incredible VRM with 17 phases and 60 amps. The fact that it has heat sinks all around and the 8+8-pin CPU power connector is a big advantage too. In addition to this, it also has 3 M.2 slots and 12 USB ports in total, with one of them being a USB Type-C port. For this price, a feature-packed motherboard like this is a deal you shouldn't miss. GPU, Asus Prime RTX 5070 Ti. It would be a huge mistake to not go with NVIDIA within this price range. It's especially lucky that a model like the Asus Prime is the most affordable 5070 Ti model. I put this model on the top of the C tier on my NVIDIA RTX 50 series tier list. If If you're looking for a cheaper option, you can go for the RX 9070 XT on
Da,
the AMD side as
šipća.
well. NVIDIA's software toys like MFG and DLSS4 will allow you to play future games comfortably as well. This was the main reason I picked the 5070 Ti instead of the RX 9070 XT. Plus, its power consumption and temperature values are pretty reasonable too. It offers a similar performance to the RX 9070 XT I've mentioned. Both cards come with 16GB VRAM and offer more than satisfactory performance at 1440p resolution.
Joj, gdje je
The only
on?
difference is that while
Joj,
the
vidi ti njega,
5070
gdje?
Ti has GDDR7 memory, the RX 9070 XT has GDDR6 memory. This allows the memory of the 5070 Ti to be faster and be used more efficiently in some situations. If you're planning to do production work, NVIDIA cards are better in that regard. Keep that in mind. SSD. Samsung 990 Pro 1TB. Plain and simple. I've used one of the best SSDs on the market. Not picking a beast like the 990 Pro when our budget allows us to do so would be pointless. It can reach read speeds of up to 7,200 megabytes per second and write speeds of up to 6,800 megabytes per second. So it performs quite closely to the advertised speeds. Another advantage it has is that it has a DRAM. You can think of it like a RAM positioned inside the SSD. The DRAM lets the SSD run faster and more stably. RAM. Patriot Viper Venom RGB 32GB
Vrati se, pokupi ga.
CL30. It would be really nonsensical to not use a dual-channel 32GB DDR5 memory in this budget. It runs pretty stably at 6,000.
Pa nemoj me kritika halati, bog te mazo.
Range for AMD builds. Faster speeds may sometimes cause compatibility issues. Normally, the performance increase from dual-channel is smaller with DDR5 than with DDR4. However, with 32GB of capacity, this configuration still improves the PC's overall performance. These RAMs also have RGB-less and CL36 variants available. If their prices are close, I recommend picking the CL31. Case. MSI Mag Forge 321R. You might be thinking that I picked this case just because of its brand, but no, I'm still old-fashioned in terms of PC cases, and I still prioritize functionality. Just like in the previous case, this one also comes with 4 120mm ARGB fans and a fan controller. It has 160mm of CPU air cooler clearance, supports massive GPUs up to 390mm long, fits ATX motherboards, and has radiator support for 360mm on top and 240mm in the front. Unlike the previous case, it doesn't have built-in support for vertical GPU mounting. You can add this functionality using a vertical GPU mounting kit. I picked this case as it fulfilled my criteria. I'm sure you can find a case you like at this price point by researching. PSU. Cooler Master MWE Gold 850 V3. Yeah, I went.
Jebi ga, druže. Vin je vin.
The MSI A750BN I recommended earlier would be enough for the RTX 5070 Ti as well. In fact, most 700 would be more than enough for this build.
Znači, trebam pobijediti, to je to. Sad branimo 3 minute i to je to.
And it offers flexibility for any upgrades you might perform in the future. This specific model I've picked is the modular
Na istom mjestu.
MWE V3 850 watts. This way you can drastically reduce the mess cables create. It's a really high quality model. It's placed in the B+ tier in SPL's PSU tier list, so you can pick it with peace of mind. It also supports the ATX 3.0 standard and the 12-volt high-power cable. And unlike the MSI A750BN, its cable isn't limited to 300 watts. The Asus Prime 5070 Ti we're using also has this new generation power connector, which helps reduce cable clutter. I have an important thing to note here. Reports of 12-volt high-power cables burning arise from time to time, but the probability of encountering such an issue on a GPU that doesn't draw a lot of power, such as the 5070 Ti, is really low. You just have to make sure that you properly plug in the connector. With that out of the way, our mid-tier build is complete for $1,457 in total.
Okay.
High-end build. Next up is the big boy. Our budget for the high-end build is between $2,500 and $2,600. My goal is to prevent you from overspending. Don't forget, more expensive doesn't always mean more performance. So I'll be a bit more direct, maybe even a bit blunt in this section. But before we get on to this build, there's something I want to tell you. As you know, I normally don't talk about this, but the majority of the viewers are not subscribed and don't leave a like on the video. This negatively affects the views. If you want to support me, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and a comment. This way, I can shoot more videos for you. Now let's continue where we left off. CPU, AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D. If you're interested in rendering and production work, The 9900X, the 7950X, or even the 9950X, if you're lucky, might be more sensible for you. But our main goal here is gaming, so there's no reason to not pick the 9800X 3D. For me to fully explain this processor, I'd need to go deep into the technical details, but I'll cut it short for this video. If you want a more in-depth explanation, you can check out this video. Generally, the gaming performance of the 9800X 3D is a bit better than the 9900X 3D and the 9950X 3D. But if you're interested in production as much as you are interested in gaming, you can still go for the 9900X 3D and the 9950X 3D. One of the biggest features that makes the 9800X 3D stand out is its massive 96 megabyte L3 cache. Cache are super fast memory modules within the CPU, and they play a huge role in gaming performance. The 9800X 3D is virtually unrivaled in esports games that rely more on the processor thanks to its cache amount. Now let's get into the part I'll be blunt in. X3D series processors really are amazing in terms of gaming performance, but they display this difference especially in lower resolutions or in games that rely more on processing power. For example, if you try to use an RTX 5080 at 1080p resolution, you're highly likely to be CPU bottlenecked. But if you have a 7800X 3D or 9800X 3D, it can keep up with the RTX 5080 and increase your FPS dramatically. This is where the true power of the X3D processors really comes to light. But when it comes to 4K resolution, even if you use the RTX 5080 with the 9800X 3D,
samo treba da
you might see
pobjedim.
similar FPS values with cheaper processors such as the 9600X. This is because when gaming in 4K, the load is entirely on the graphics card, and the impact of the processor gets to a minimum. Long story short, if you're going to be gaming in 4K, you don't need the 9800X 3D. I recommended this processor as your budget allows it, and as you'll be able to get high performance with future graphics cards as well. But if you want to save some money, keep in mind that you have other processor options too. CPU cooler. Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 Pro ARGB 360. As our budget is large enough, I've used one of the best AIO water coolers available on the market. Liquid Freezer series is already a series that always shines with its high quality and performance. But there is something I want to stress. Remember the Phantom Spirit I used in the mid-tier build? That air cooler performs better than most 200...